Bonsoir tout le monde,
Good evening,
bienvenue à
everyone,
cette
and
réunion du 8
welcome to this
avril déjà.
meeting of April 8th already.
Et pour débuter, je dois dire que la ville de
And
Dieppe
as we get started, then
reconnaît sur
I'd like
laquelle
to
elle tient ses activités
mention
comme
that the city of
activité
Dieppe
ancestrale
recognizes that the land on which it
concédée
operates is part of the
aux
traditional,
Mi'kmaq.
ancestral, and unceded
Et
territory of
également,
the
chers
Mi'kmaq.
collègues, ayons la
Dear
sérénité
colleagues,
d'accepter les
let's have the
choses que nous ne
serenity
pouvons
to
changer,
accept the
le
things we
courage
cannot
de changer
change, the
les choses
courage
que
to
l'on
change the
peut
things we
et la
can, and
sagesse
the
de
wisdom to
connaître
know
la
the
différence.
difference.
Alors, bonsoir, bienvenue à
Good
tous.
evening, everyone, and welcome.
Et on appelle la réunion à
I'd
l'ordre.
like to call the meeting to order.
Et confirmation du
And
quorum.
do we have
On
a
a
quorum?
assez de joueurs
I see
autour
that there are
pour débuter.
enough
Oui.
players around the table to
Et
get started. Yes.
déclaration de conflit
Conflicts of
d'intérêts. Est-ce que
interest.
des membres
Are
du
there
conseil ont
any
des conflits
conflicts of
d'intérêts?
interest?
Madame
Any council
Godbout.
members? Councillor Godbout? I think I had advised the
CAO
CAO that I had a conflict for with
Le
10.1.2,
10.1.2.
10.1.2. I have a conflict with the Dieppe Pickleball Club. Okay.
C'est noté.
Duly noted.
Alors maintenant, pour une proposition pour
I
l'adoption
would
de
need a
l'ordre
motion
du
to
jour
adopt the agenda,
proposé par la
moved by
conseillère
Councillor Turgeon-Roy, seconded
sur la
by Councillor
question.
Thibodeau on the question.
Aucune question. Ceux qui sont en
All those
faveur
in
de
favor
la résolution
of
signifient
the
par un
motion will
oui.
signify by saying
Les avis
aye.
contraires par un non.
Opposed, no.
Alors, l'ordre du jour est
The agenda
accepté tel que présenté.
is carried, is adopted
Ce qui
as
nous amène
presented.
au
Which
item
brings us
7
to
pour
item
les
number 7,
présentations, requêtes
presentations,
et
inquiries,
pétitions.
and
Au
petitions.
7.1, on commence toujours
7.1,
avec
we always begin
demande de
the
renseignements
evening with
qui sont soumis
inquiries
au
by
service
council members
régional
of
de
the
l'environnement
Kodiak
rural.
Regional
Et ce
RCMP.
soir, nous avons
This
Monsieur Benoît
evening,
Jolet
we have
avec
Mr.
nous.
Benoit Jolet here with
C'est
us.
toujours un plaisir de
It's
le voir
always a
ensemble
pleasure
parmi
to
nous.
see you here with
Encore,
us.
on est toujours bien servi quand
But though
même.
we are always very well
Vous
served
n'êtes pas ici.
when you are not
Alors,
here,
bonsoir, bienvenue.
but good evening and
Merci, Monsieur
welcome.
le maire, membres du
Thank
conseil,
you.
les
Thank you,
employés
Your
municipaux
Worship, the members
et le
and
vaste public
staff,
ici ce
and
soir.
the vast public here
J'espère que
this
tout le monde
evening.
s'est remis de
I
les
hope
émotions
that everybody
de
has gotten
l'éclipse
over the
cet été.
emotions of the
Moi-même, j'ai pris la
eclipse.
chance d'expliquer
I
l'astronomie puis tout ce qui se
took the
passe
opportunity to
chez les 3
explain
ans
astronomy and all of this to my 11-year-old daughter. Our
Il y a eu beaucoup
patrollers
d'appels de
were
service, surtout
busy. There were a number of service calls
les
between
gens
2:30 and
habitués
6
de voir
p.m.
ce
There were
soir
people
qui se
everywhere
promenaient sur
and
le bord du chemin quand j'ai
people
conduit parce que c'était bizarre. Mais il n'y a
stopped
pas eu de
along the
gros
side of the
services,
road when it happened, but there were no serious incidents, just a
22
lot
ans
of
la
calls. We
prochaine,
had
en
it'll
2046.
be the next
J'espère
one will be in
entendre ce que je peux faire.
2046, so another
Ça
22
sera
years. We'll have
peut-être
lots
quelqu'un
of
d'autre.
time
Oui.
to get
Donc,
prepared.
quelques
Well, it'll be
nouvelles
somebody else's problem,
d'information
right? Yeah.
à aviser au conseil.
So now I'd
Première
like to
affaire,
mention
c'est
to council, the
pour nos
first
agents de la
thing
police
is that
communautaire.
our
Juste un
officers,
petit point de
our
vue.
community
Le
officers,
21 mars
on
dernier, plusieurs membres de
March
l'unité se sont
21st,
rendus
several
à une autre
members of the
session de
unit
recrutement. C'est
went
la
to another
deuxième qu'on
recruitment
fait dans les
session.
derniers
It's the
mois.
second one we're holding in the last few
Lors de
months.
l'événement, les
And during
intéressés
this
auront la
event,
chance de
the
participer à un
interested
test
parties were
d'admission
able to
professionnel
take a
physique aux
test on
policiers.
their
C'est
fitness,
vraiment impressionnant encore de
and
voir autant de
we
gens,
were really
aussi jeunes
impressed to
comme
see
moins jeunes,
such a
qui ont un
great number of
intérêt
people, young and
plein
not so
pour
young,
le métier
who
policier,
are
voir
interested in
qu'est-ce que ça
a
va de
career in
l'avant.
policing, and who are at least are
Nous
interested
autres,
in finding
c'est
out more
vraiment
about it.
pour
So for us,
aviser les gens
it's
du nouveau
important
processus qu'on a
to
depuis déjà
tell
l'année
people
passée.
about the new process that has
C'est le
been
genre de
in place
contrat
since last year. It's
préassignation.
a
Un autre moment
contract for
qui m'a
pre-assignment, if you will.
intéressé dans une carrière
In
de
other words, if
policier,
you're interested in a
c'est faire
career with
des
the
étapes
RCMP, you
avant
have to
même
go through the
d'aller à
different
Regina à
steps.
l'Académie de la
But
GRC
before you go to
pour
the
signer
academy,
un
the
contrat
depot
pour
in
dire
Regina, you
oui,
can
je veux
sign a
revenir au
contract to say,
Nouveau-Brunswick
yes, I
ou
want to come
je
back to
vois
New
qu'est-ce que
Brunswick,
l'avenir va
or
m'apporter.
I want to see what
On
the
a déjà
future can
vu
hold
que
for
la
me.
grande
We've
majorité des
seen that
applicants,
the
avant même d'aller
great
à Regina,
majority of
refusent le
applicants
contrat
have
une fois
already
que
signed a contract
l'entraînement est
before even
terminé.
going to Regina. So
À place
before
d'avoir un
their
genre de jeu
training is
au hasard, ou je
finished,
dis souvent un jeu
without
au
having
hasard, effectivement, chez
without
nous autres, on va envoyer
playing
des gars.
darts, if you will, with
L'on
their
sait
future
qu'on va revenir
assignments,
dans notre
they
province
know
natal,
that they're going
puis
to come back to
ça
their
donne
native
un petit peu
province.
plus de motivation
And
pour les
it's a
candidats et
little
les
more
candidates
motivating for the
parce
candidates
qu'ils vont
as well,
retourner
because
servir
they can come back
en
here
français, en
to
anglais
serve the
ou en
population here in French
en son
and
nom et
or in
domaine
English.
si on
So there will be other events, and we're expecting to have a great number of people participate. And the crime reduction unit, now our officers on the unit continue to work on the crimes that cause the greatest harm to the community. And I think Inspector Farah has already mentioned it. Vehicle thefts that we've seen in the last few months. Our officers have been able to apprehend several people, but we continue to work on it. There are also different types of investigation techniques that will be very innovative, very different, that we'll see over the next few months. And Inspector Farah is going to share the results with you when we're there. Now, something else that has made the news recently that I wanted to mention to Council. In June 2023, last year, we received a report about a sexual assault that had taken place 10 years earlier in the Moncton area. We started our investigation, and during the investigation, we determined that the individual had used a nauseous substance to render the victim unconscious prior to the assault. So a very dangerous situation, a very complicated investigation, but we were able to file charges against a 36-year-old from this region. Later on in the summer, we discovered that there had been other victims as well, and we determined that the investigation brought us to the Greater Moncton, but also to the Edmundston area and possibly out west as well, and that these assaults were carried out between 2010 and 2023. On March 14th, this person returned to court to face additional charges, and on March 21st, they pled guilty to the following charges. I'm not going to read them all, but you were talking about sexual assault, voyeurism, assault, and others. And I wanted to talk to you about it here and to tell you and the people who are listening is that quite often these sexual assault cases are very complicated for the victims. And that's why that we want people to come to talk to us, even if it's 1 year, 5 years, 20 years later. There is no time limit on crimes against, on sexual assault crimes. We want to hear your stories. We want to do our job. And we want to make sure that we charge the people who are responsible for these actions. So I would ask the victims to find the courage to come talk to us, and we're ready to listen to you. And I'd like to remind people as well that on May 1st is coming quickly. This is more for the north of the province, but where people use studded tires. But we hear them drive around here in the area as well quite frequently. So just a reminder that on May 1st, by May 1st, you have to have removed the studs. And the weather is nice, which doesn't mean that you can start racing in the cars. You still have to follow the speed limit, and school buses are still on the roads. There was an incident this morning. Luckily, nobody was hurt, but there was an incident with a school bus here in town. And just a reminder that the provincial road safety team will be here in the next few weeks, and we expect that we're going to get calls from people to tell us where the most problems are noticed. We already get this from council and residents, but we want to hear your stories. Where are the areas of town that cause the most problems? Because that's where we send the team when they come to town. And lastly, I'd like to mention to council that we've started the preparations for the country festival that's to be held at the end of August. We had organized things well last year, and I'd like to thank the city of Dieppe and all of the volunteers, everybody who helped make this a success. There were no major incidents during the event, but we will continue to work on it because we want to make sure that we ensure the safety of all of the spectators, but we can't forget the residents who live around the area as well. Residents can be bothered by what's going on, especially when you have 25,000 people in one spot that aren't just drinking Gatorade and water bottles. So we're going to continue to work on that. And myself or Inspector Farah will update you on our plan. And I'd like to give you an overview of what we can expect in terms of public safety during the festival. And I'm available to answer your questions. Thank you. Questions from council?
Bonne fête soirée.
Have a great evening.
Bonne fête soirée.
Have a great evening.
Merci beaucoup.
Thank you.
Comme
Thank
toujours,
you.
vous êtes
And
bienvenue,
as
vous
always,
reviendrez
you're
sûrement
welcome to remain here with us, but we will understand
suffisamment d'autres
if
choses
you have
Merci.
other things to keep you busy.
pas ça vous mettre dehors.
And I'm not trying to kick you out either.
Maintenant, à l'item,
Now, item,
prochain item,
the next item then,
présentation de la Journée de la Terre ou le Jour de la
the
Terre,
Earth Day
Alexandre
presentation,
Truchon-Savard va nous
Alexandre
présenter,
Truchon-Savard.
ce qu'on prévoit.
He's going to
Bonsoir et
explain what we're planning for that day. Good evening. Welcome.
Bonsoir, Monsieur le maire,
Good
conseiller
evening,
municipal.
Your
C'est
Worship.
vraiment
Good
un
evening,
privilège pour moi de
councillors.
parler
It's a
de la Terre
privilege for me to
spéciale.
talk
Vous
about
avez
Earth
vu
Day. It's a special day. Seems that the stars have lined up. That's my joke for the evening.
Merci.
Yeah, that
Non, mais
was
ça
too
fait
easy.
réfléchir
No, but
quand même.
it
La
really
Terre,
makes
on
us
est
think, right?
tous partie d'une seule et
That
même planète.
to think
Puis
that we're all part of
spatiale
the
et qu'il faut
same
prendre soin. Donc,
planet and
aujourd'hui,
it's
je vais vous
our
présenter
spacecraft and we have to
planifié
take
pour
care of it. So
souligner
today
le
I'm
jour de la
going
Terre à
to
Dieppe.
explain to you what we've
Vous
planned
allez
for
voir,
Earth
il
Day
y a
here in
une
Dieppe.
bonne bonification
And
par
you'll
rapport à
see
l'année
that
passée.
there's a lot more than last year. There are a lot of activities for the whole
Bonne
family
variété
and a good
d'initiatives.
variety of different initiatives.
Donc, la célébration
So
aura
the
lieu
celebration
la journée
will be
officielle
on April
du
20th.
jour de
The
la Terre, c'est le 30
official
novembre,
Earth
mais
Day
pour
is April
organiser un événement
22nd,
communautaire, on a
but in
décidé
order
de
to
choisir
organize a
le jour
community
de fin de semaine. Donc,
activity
c'est les
day,
communautés locales
we
possibles
chose
de
a
trouver
weekend day,
un
so
mauvais temps.
April 20th.
Traditionnellement, on organise
And the
un grand
21st
passage
if
de guéchette,
if
ce
the
qui aura
weather
lieu
doesn't
donc
allow
en
it. So
coordination
there's
avec
going to be a
l'équipe
community
de protection
cleanup once
qui va nous
again with
ramasser les sacs
coordination
sanitaires
with
et
our
les gens
teams to
pourront
pick up
les avoir
bags.
des
You can go
sentiers
get a
dans
bag
les parcs.
to pick up the garbage that
On
you
va
can leave the bag then along the
permettre aux
trails or
membres
in
de
the
la
parks.
communauté,
And
c'est encore
we
très
want the
populaire
involvement
ici
of the
à
whole
Dieppe,
community. It's an
on a un
activity that is
tirage
very
pour
popular.
ceux qui
There will be a
participent.
draw for the
On a
participants.
également de la
We're
plantation
also
d'arbres
going
prévue
to
pour
have a
cette fête.
tree
Les
planting
gens peuvent s'inscrire pour planter un
activity.
arbre en
People
équipe de 4 à 6 personnes.
can
Il va y
sign
avoir
up to plant a tree
également
in teams
la
of 4 to
distribution de
6.
graines et de
There's
plantes
also going to be the
natives qui vient
distribution
des
of native
coopérations lors de
seeds
l'événement.
and
Ça
plants
vient un peu
by
renforcer le message
organizations
qu'on
that
veut envoyer aux gens,
cooperate
la
for the event,
motivation de
which
la
just
présence
reinforces the
dans les
message
eaux et de profiter jusqu'à 3
that we
heures.
want to give on
On a
the
également nos
lawns
amis de
that
les amis de la
is going to
nature, un
come.
groupe
The
communautaire
presentation
qui
is
organise
following
une
this
marche
one, and then
dans le
our
parc, une marche nature.
friends
Vous pouvez vous
Amis
inscrire.
de la Nature are organizing
On va
nature
commencer
walks
une
as
dizaine
well in the
d'exposants,
park.
dont
We're going to have
360
over
santé, nature NB,
10
Muséum
different
500, la bibliothèque
exhibitors,
Éco
including
Nature,
Eco
Folklore
360,
et
NB Power,
New-Brunswick, qui font
Nature,
du très beau
NB,
travail dans la région de
Petitcodiac
proximité.
Watershed Alliance, the
On a
library,
également
Amis de la
l'animation
Nature,
de cirque, une
Fort
fête
Folly Habitat
qui
Recovery.
présente
There's
va
going to
faire
be
entendre
circus
présenter
performances, a
beaucoup
mini farm,
d'offres pour tout le monde.
draws.
Donc des ateliers
There's
vraiment
going to be
pour
door
les familles.
prizes and workshops for the whole family.
On coordonne également un ramassage des
We are
déchets
also
avec les
going to
écoles, auquel
coordinate
on va donner
a
des
garbage
participations
cleanup
pour
with
les
the
classes de
schools. There will be
Home
a
Hardware et Premier,
prize
donc un
offered by Home
apprentissage
Hardware and
pour une
Premier
classe.
Tech. So it's
Et
a high class
ce ramassage
complete
de
gardening kit
déchets-là va
for a
pouvoir
classroom.
avoir lieu
And the
n'importe quand
pickup
pendant
of
la
that
semaine. Ils ont juste
can
à
take place
envoyer
anytime during
les
the week.
résultats
They
de leur
just have to
ramassage.
send us the
Et
results
on
of the
encourage également
school.
les
And
employés
we
locaux à
also
faire
encourage
de
our
même. Donc, le
municipal
22
staff
avril à
to do their
midi,
part on
on
April
choisit les gens pour
22nd.
être
Then
importants pour aller nettoyer
we're
autour
going to
des
encourage
écoles.
people to go clean up around our public
Également,
buildings.
Kodiak Transpo et
Kodiak
la
Transpo
mobilité urbaine Dieppe
and
offriront
Dieppe
la gratuité
Urban
le
Mobility
22 avril.
are offering free
C'est pas dit que ça va
transportation
encore,
on
j'avais
April
soumis
22nd.
réservation, mais
I
c'est
said
confirmé,
to
donc
be
on s'en va.
confirmed here when I wrote the
On a également une très belle
presentation, but it
campagne
has
média
been
qui va être
confirmed.
lancée. Donc,
We have a
l'équipe de
media
communication
campaign
qui a
that's going to
préparé
be
le
launched.
logo qui
So
va être réutilisé
congratulations
cette
to
année
the
en
team
Amérique.
that prepared this
On va
logo that's
également
going to
des
be
spots
used every
publicitaires à
year.
la radio.
We're also going to put some ads
Et
on
on
the
encourage également à
radio.
faire
We're
circuler un petit
encouraged
défi sur les réseaux sociaux, donc un genre
to
de
launch a
défi
challenge on the
d'organisation
social networks, kind
qui
of a
s'appelle Ice Bucket Challenge.
I
Donc, on
don't
va
know if you
envoyer
remember the ice
des amis
bucket
autour
challenge, but you
des
can
initiatives
challenge your
environnementales.
friends to share
Et
their
également
environmental
avec les
initiatives with
partenaires
us,
qui
and
vont être
obviously with
exposants,
the
donc qui vont avoir
different
collaboration
exhibitors and
conduire l'événement. Déjà sur
collab
Facebook, on a une très belle réponse. Le
collaboration.
commencement
We've
positif,
already
quelques
had a
personnes
great
ont
response on
planifié leur week-end
Facebook. Over
pour cet
300
événement.
people have signified their
Donc,
interest to
c'était
participate
juste
in the
pour faire
event.
une grande
So I
promotion
just wanted
rapidement.
to
Et
mention
si
it
vous
and
aussi
to
envoyez une
promote
invitation, est-ce
this.
que vous
We've
participez
sent the
aussi
invitation
au
to your
festival
worship and the
avec
councillors
nous
to ask you to come to say a few words for the opening with a member of Fort Folly First Nation around 10 o'clock a.m. that day. So are there any questions? Questions from council? Comments, questions? Nothing at all. Okay. Well, seeing it went over so well, we'll go straight to the next one. And the next item, then 7.3, is a presentation on the vegetative growth, bylaw C-35. C-35, yes. C-35. Yeah, bylaw C-35, 2024. Yeah. So bylaw C-35, what used to be called the bylaws on lawns, but now we're going to call it the bylaw on vegetative growth, and I'll explain why. Following the presentation I had made to the standing committee, just to remind you very quickly before we go to first reading or later this evening. So just a reminder of the objectives, and I didn't put it here, but it's not to eliminate cutting grass. People can cut their grass if they want to. If you want to keep it short, no problem with that. But the objective of this bylaw is to comply with the case law that we're seeing elsewhere in Canada. We want to promote landscaping that is better for nature. It's more naturalized, if you will. It'll be an opportunity to innovate. It'll be opportunity for Dieppe to stand out. And at the same time, we will be able to make a better use of our internal resources. Our bylaw officers won't have to go answer so many calls for the length of the lawn, and our municipal staff, as the pilot project advances, they can be reassigned to other sectors where they're more needed. So there are some court decisions that have sided with citizens who wish to naturalize their lawns. So you can always debate the intention of naturalization, and it becomes very complicated if you try to decide what is aesthetic, what is acceptable or not. And what courts have said is that the municipalities can regulate anything that affects safety or health. So in this bylaw, we're going to make sure that there is no obstruction for drivers, for signage, the triangle of visibility, but also if there are any dangerous or harmful species, it'll be the owner's responsibility to remove them. In doing this, we've just saved 200 to 300 interventions every summer by bylaw. And a lot of these lots are maintained by the city, but they're underused. So we can do different landscaping in different ways in these areas rather than just always cutting the grass. So just a reminder on the dates. We're in April. We're going to hear first and possibly first reading tonight and perhaps last reading at the end of the month. And we have a private project with the University of Moncton that we're going to do an inventory of the insects in the region to see the impact that this diversity may have on desirable or undesirable species. We already have this NOMO May, the Dandelion Madness month of May, and just a little comment on the side. Perhaps we're going to change the branding of the dandelion madness, because now we don't want just dandelions, we want all flowers, all the wildflowers. Now we do have something that's ready to be published in Dieppe Mag in June 2024, which will explain the reasoning behind these changes and what best practices are, and we can answer some of the more common questions. In September, we're going to ask the public for their feedback, what they observed, what they saw, and we'll present the results of the research project with the University of Moncton and the public consultation by the end of November. And the changes being proposed then, this will impact all vegetative growth, bushes, hedges, and so on, all owners, including vacant sites. So it's everybody's responsibility to make sure that you're not obstructing traffic or anybody's visibility, but but the vegetative growth will be tolerated as long as it doesn't obstruct anybody. And if any harmful or toxic plants must be removed, and if there's any problems with the Department of the Environment or the Fire Department, if they give any special instructions, they have to be complied with. But there's still a lot of leeway here. So just a reminder of the advantages. First of all, it'll increase the diversity of the plants. It'll reduce the undesirable insects, especially in the zones where the lawn isn't cut as short. It'll really increase the number of insects, but mostly the desirable ones, according to our literature review. Now, ragweed will be less present. This is an allergen that causes hay fever, and so it won't come in where the grass is longer. And also there will be an increase in the pollinators and a better resistance to drought. So some plants will have better roots and they will tolerate droughts much better than much more, and especially these droughts that are going to become more frequent and longer. And so that's my overview. And if you have any questions on it, I'm ready to answer. Questions from Councillor Turgeon. Thank you, Your Worship. Congratulations for the initiative. I had a question. Because of these changes, it's where you say that you're going to be much freer to naturalize your lawn, to let it grow. But we're asking people to reduce toxic and harmful plants. How are people to know if this and this, such a species, if it's a toxic plant or a harmful one? There is a list published by the province of harmful plants, and we'll refer people to that. There will be an information guide on our website as well. But if plants such as poison ivy, for example, people can tell us, and we'll have leeway if we'll have leeway. I mean, we can intervene at that point. So there will be education, promotion and education. Yes, there will be. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Councillor Jeannin. Thank you, Your Worship. Thank you once again for giving us this presentation once again, and I will encourage the citizens to go see the first presentation that you had made on March 18th, I believe. And congratulations once again for having repeated that there will be an information guide made available. Could you perhaps give us an overview of the project with the University of Moncton for the people who are listening this evening? Yeah, well, the idea of the project, well, we're going to work on sectors that belong to the city. We're going to reseed them with native flowering plants as much as possible, and we're going to install some insect traps along with a specialist from the University of Moncton. It'll be a student project for the summer, and we're going to identify the different insects to the best of our ability to see what difference it makes between the areas where the grass is mowed and where it's not. So it'll just give us one series of observations over one season, but it will help us determine if there is change. Is it just on insects, or are we going to see what native plants might appear? Well, we're not going to start doing an inventory of the plants. We're going to start seeding plants. We know what we're going to seed. That's what we're going to observe. But no, for the vegetation, I haven't found an expert to collaborate this summer, but perhaps next year. Okay, thank you very much. Thank you. Councillor Godbout. Thank you. I have a question of a practical nature. For people, a lawn is a lawn. There's not much difference. But if I cut my lawn like I always did in the past, and there's nothing, this bylaw is not going to change anything to that. So the people who can continue to do what they did before, they will be in compliance. Yes, absolutely. Yes, thank you. Councillor Leboutier. Thank you, Your Worship. I have a few questions on the process. Could you explain? Well, we have a pilot project. Normally, you observe, you analyze, and then you develop the bylaw. Why are we going directly to a bylaw in this case? Well, we conducted a legal analysis of the bylaw, and this is what they recommended based on the case law currently, because in fact, over the last few years, we're more in prevention, and we're not comfortable giving tickets because we could be challenged, brought to court over it. So I think if we see that it's not working at all, well, unfortunately, the case law doesn't allow us to come back to an original bylaw because the courses have decided, the courts have decided that where there is a limit of 20 centimeter lawn or 30 centimeter, I mean, a lot of municipalities have that they have to go back to the drawing board when they had those kind of practices. So we thought we'd just go straight ahead and go right in, dive right in. How many other cities in Canada have a system like this? None, as far as I know. So we'd be the first in Canada? Well, a number of cities just don't have any bylaws on the lawn, and the society's standards are such that everybody has their lawn pretty much the same. But I haven't found any other cities where there's an actual bylaw that states it. So, in your opinion, we're going to save on court cases that could happen one day? And now, what about the definition of the obstruction to visibility? To me, that's very vague, to obstruct visibility depending on the height. It's just an information because I don't know very much about it. Well, signage, I mean, road signs, it's easy to see what might obstruct the visibility, but there's a triangle of visibility in engineering. It's something that we can get expertise on internally. That could help us determine if we need to take action. We already do that for trees, for example. Sometimes the lower branches block the view of our road signs. Well, I mean, we do that already, but we validate it with the engineering service. So that's where we could use that to say, okay, no, this situation is not safe. Now, for the rest of visibility, well, if it's your backyard or your front yard, I mean, if you see the house or not, that's not going to hurt traffic at all. Well, for region like ours, an urban region, if we do this and we decide that for whatever reason we want to stop this, nobody's going to say. I think you mentioned at the last meeting, at the last presentation, that if somebody comes and says that they want to go ahead with this project, and then later on, you said it's very difficult to come back to a lawn because there won't be a turf grass anymore. I mean, you're going to have hay. It's very difficult to come back to turf grass. Well, yeah, well, that's a personal decision at that time. I mean, if you want turf grass, if that's your personal decision on your private property. It's like a flower bed or bushes. Well, if have there been discussions with our residents? Did you do this? Not yet. No. So you're going with a bylaw before public consultations? Well, yeah. We saw that there was a lot of enthusiasm with No Mo May. So that's getting bigger and bigger every year. So because of the case law, we're at risk of being brought to court. And that would be extra cost for the municipality. So thank you. That's all my questions. Thank you. Thank you. And I don't see any other questions. No. So thank you for your presentation. And then we'll see what happens. Yeah. If council wants us to organize a public presentation, we can do that in the next few weeks. We have a fairly busy agenda already, but if you would like us to organize a public forum or a presentation, this is certainly something that we can look at. We can see at which moment would be the best time for it. I just want to mention that. Okay. Councillor Leboutillier. Well, it's up to you and your discretion, but for me, the bylaw for me is too quick. I am going to vote against. Why? Because everybody I've spoken to, nobody is in favor that with the idea that overnight we can just change this and that you can't control what your neighbor has and that there's no control. Now, if we have a challenge, well, everybody has their opinion. But once again, I haven't met a resident yet. But if you remove this limit of 20 centimeters and your neighbor, well, wants to grow whatever, anything, then it'll be negative. And I'm just wondering if the 20 centimeters is the problem, or perhaps raise it to 30. I don't know, raise it to 200. I don't know. I don't have an answer, but it seems to me that it's very, very brave and congratulations, but I think we should have a consultation because all of our residents are not in favor. That's my opinion. Thank you.
Thank you. This will certainly, we'll have to certainly revisit this if if council feels that that's necessary. But we'll see what happens with the vote later on this evening. Councillor Turgeon-Roy? Oh, you'll speak. Okay, later on the topic. Okay, all right. We'll keep that when we come to that item on the agenda. All right, so that ends the presentations. Questions from our vast public? No questions? All right, let's continue. Adoption of minutes from the regular council meeting held on March 25th. Can I have a motion? Councillor Jeannet, seconded by Councillor Turgeon-Roy. On the question. Seeing no questions, those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. The motion carries as presented. That brings us to item number 10. And this is motions and memorandums and nominations. So 10.1, community development. Mr. Melançon, please. So intention to host the 2026 Rendez-vous Acadie 50 plus. All right. All right, so our first item refers to the idea that the municipality wants to express an interest in hosting the Acadie 50 plus rendezvous event, which will be held in September 2026. So there have been 7 past rendezvous. They offer a wide range of cultural and sporting events. So it's an entertaining and positive event for those that participate. We've heard some good feedback from it. So we want support from the council to begin the process. We want to begin with an exploratory, to kind of explore the option and perhaps submit our application. And so this will require a bit of some funding and as well as staff as well. And if you need more material or more details, we can provide more. So it's a new version, but I think we've already hosted the games. Well, we hosted the 50 plus games a few years ago, but this is a New-Brunswick activity. All right, who would like to read the motion, or the resolution rather? Who would like to do that? Councillor Thibodeau, please. I'm the right age to read the resolution. Great, thank you, Your Worship. That council authorize the personnel to express the municipality's interest in hosting the Rendez-vous Acadie 50 plus event, which will be held in September 2026, and further authorize the city's official application to the event that the result of a feasibility study, a feasibility analysis is considered favorable by municipal staff. So moved, Council, seconded by Councillor Lantaigne. On the question. Seeing no questions, those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. The resolution is carried as presented. 10.1.2 now. Partnership agreement with the Dieppe Pickleball Club. All right, just for the record, Councillor Godbout is withdrawing from the discussion because of a conflict of interest. So this is about, or this motion deals with a partnership that we built last year. We built 10 pickleball fields last year. So the municipality provided the infrastructure, and the club takes care of the programming. So this agreement will lay out the responsibilities of each party. And we're also looking to participate, or to protect a certain, to set aside time for the public to participate rather. So this partnership agreement is up for your consideration and approval tonight, and it's for a 3-year period. All right, who would like to read that resolution? Councillor Jeannet, please. Thank you, Your Worship. That Council accept the partnership agreement between the City of Dieppe and the Dieppe Pickleball Club for a 3-year period starting April 8th, 2024 to April 8th, 2027. I so move. Moved by Councillor Jeannet, seconded by Councillor Thibodeau. Sorry about that. On the question. Seeing no questions, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. The resolution carries as presented. 10.1.3, another memorandum of understanding, this time with Tennis Dieppe. All right, so this is just to confirm that Councillor Godbout is back and can participate in the discussion. So this is an agreement between Tennis Dieppe and the city. So the city provides the infrastructure, and the club ensures the programming and all the activities. And again, we're setting aside time so that the public has access to this activity. So this is for a 3-year period, and we recommend approval. And it resembles the agreement that was in place earlier. All right, who would like to read the resolution? Councillor Lantaigne, please. All right, that Council accept the memorandum of understanding between the City of Dieppe and Tennis Dieppe Inc. for a 3-year period starting April 8th, 2024 to April 8th, 2027. So moved. Moved by Councillor Lantaigne, seconded by Councillor Turgeon-Roy. On the question. A question from Councillor Turgeon-Roy. I just have an information question. In the MOU, now we ask this every year, and they come and give us an annual report on their challenges and so forth. In recent years, we talked about access to washrooms. There's a lack on the fields. Is there anything in the works for that? Not this year, but in the recreation plan, we've identified a number of plans where, or a number of locations where we need washroom facilities. So, and actually they're coming to do a presentation next week. It's their turn to do the presentation. Okay, that's what I thought. Thank you. Just to give you a bit of context here, there were 2 project proposals for picking the site. So pickleball was the first one. And now that the pickleball fields are built, now we can look at the tennis fields and perhaps locate them close to the Uniplex. All right, thank you. Are any further questions? All right. Those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. The resolution carries as presented. All right, that brings us to item 10.2, engineering. So 10.2.1, tender award. Mr. Melanson, please. All right, as part of our capital projects for 2024, this was part of the 2024 projects. So it's the Chartersville Road water system replacement. And we took advantage of the opportunity to create a municipal road as well at Vautour. So there were 6 bids that received, and we're recommending going with Fulem Construction Limited at the cost of roughly $2.7 million plus HST, and engineering services from Englobe Corp for $170,000. So all the account numbers are listed here. There is $630,000 for and a $58,000 amount as well. So budget transfer rather in the amount of $58,000. And so that's our recommendation. And that will begin this summer. All right, who would like to read the resolution? Councillor Leboutier, please. Thank you, Your Worship. That Council award the tender for the project entitled Chartersville Road Water System Replacement Phase 2 to the lowest bidder, Fulem Construction Limited, at the cost of $2,668,800 plus HST. Authorize Englobe Corp to undertake the engineering services related to said project at the cost of $170,000 plus HST, and further authorize that these expenditures be defrayed from account number 3-3-35-58-7680, General Capital Budget Water System Replacement Chartersville Road, and account number 4-3-90-58-7680, Water and Sewer Capital Budget Water System Replacement Chartersville Road. That Council authorize a budget transfer in the amount of $630,000 from account number 3-3-35-58-7669, General Capital Budget Improvements Champlain-Acadie Intersection, to account number 3-3-35-58-7680, General Capital Budget Water System Replacement Chartersville Road. That Council authorize a budget transfer in the amount of $58,000 from account number 7-4-20-12-8940, Water and Sewer Capital Reserve Fund, to account number 4-3-90-58-7680, Water and Sewer Capital Budget, Water System Replacement, Chartersville Road. I so move. Moved by Councillor Leboutier, seconded by Councillor Thibodeau on the question. Seeing no questions, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. The resolution passes as presented. That brings us to 10.2.2 now. Tender award again. Mr. Melanson, please. So in this motion, we've been working on this for a number of years. So this microsurfacing extends the life of some of our streets. So we will be working on Chemin Gauvin and Melanson Road, certain segments. So 2 bids were received, because there are only 2 suppliers of this type of material, or this type of service rather. So industrial cold Miller paving for an amount of $298,000 and $111, and then EXP Services Inc. for engineering services at a cost of $56,000. So this is our recommendation in this file. All right, who would like to read the resolution? Councillor Thibodeau, please. Thank you, Your Worship. That Council award the tender for the project entitled 2024 Microsurfacing Various Streets to the lowest bidder, Industrial Cold Milling, a division of Miller Paving Limited, at the cost of $298,111 plus HST. Authorize EXP Services, Inc. to undertake the engineering services related to said project at the cost of $56,000 plus HST, and further authorize that these expenditures be defrayed from account number 3-3-35-58-7603, General Capital Budget, Micro Surfacing Program. I so move, Your Worship. Moved by Councillor Thibodeau, seconded by Councillor Lanting. On the question. Seeing no questions, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. The resolution carries as presented. All right, moving on now to bylaws. So bylaw C35, 2024, respecting vegetative growth. Who would like to do first reading by title only? Councillor Jeannet, please. Thank you, Your Worship. Bylaw C35, 2024, a bylaw of the City of Dieppe respecting vegetative growth. I so move. So bylaw C35 in first reading. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Oh, sorry. To second, I need a seconder. Councillor Thibodeau, thank you. All right, on the question. Councillor Leboutier. I just want to come back to the points that I made earlier. I find that what you presented, some of the things are great. The partnership with the university and looking at city property, you know, because there are places where this is really not necessary. But that's where the challenge is in the height of the grass. I mean, there are certain properties in the city, and this is what residents are telling me, that if we indicate no height, people, you know, I mean, we all know that you can do what you want with your property, but we're still in a city, and there are things that we need to rules that we need to follow. But if we can't control that, you know, I was quite surprised by this. So I did a bit of research, and the Globe and Mail did a great article very recently on this questions on No Mow Movember and Conservancy Nature of Canada. I mean, the article goes into detail about this, but so dandelions are not the best friends of bees anyways, because it's you know, it offers minimal nutrition for them. And so what they're recommending, and they have recommendations with regard to height as well. But if the grass is too high, you can get snakes and other rodents, things that we wouldn't normally have. So another question that I had, so I won't be supporting this bylaw at this point in time, but you know, I think that we have to go to the public to see what they think about the issue. So in the bylaw, and I'm just looking at the text, so the section that talks about temporarily suspending the current bylaw, I think it's at the end. All right, so section 2. Right. I'd like more information on the intention behind this. What is meant by that? What would be the impact? Okay, this is an artifact of the former version of the lawn bylaw, where we gave ourselves the permission to implement a bylaw or a project. But so here what we're doing is we're giving ourselves the ability to readjust the project, the pilot project, or either by placing restrictions. So for example, limiting things to the backyard or the front yard. But I mean, the legal advice that we received and the jurisprudence that I was able to consult, I mean, they raise numerous debates that have been experienced by other communities. So if you try to increase, it's arbitrary to say that the maximum height could be 30 or 40. So you need arguments based on safety and health to regulate that. All right, well, maybe I didn't answer my question clearly, but what I meant, or what I was referring to is when we're talking about temporarily suspending the provisions of the bylaw. So once we suspend the bylaw, there won't be anything to replace it. Well, we can probably take out the word suspend and change the wording there. I don't have any examples of what we could put instead of suspend, but I don't think we're going to be suspending any of these provisions. So I think we could take suspend out of this bylaw if that reassures you. Well, my question was, what would the impact would be? That's the only thing I was wondering about. Well, it's an artifact from the previous version, and it was to give ourselves the freedom to be able to organize Dandelion Madness in May, for example. But I don't think we have to use the word suspend. All right, Councillor Turgeon-Roy. Thank you. Now, you talked about, that it wasn't really an option to do a pilot project for this, but my question is this. Is the NOMO May project, did we have a pilot project? Did we do something the previous year? Or did we directly go to a bylaw? Did we change a bylaw? Yes, we amended, we temporarily modified the bylaw for the month of May in the first month, for the first year that we tried it. Well, could we not do a pilot project for a year to see what the impact would be on our residents? I completely agree, to try it with our own property, with city property, and we could do the research with the University of Moncton, but at the same time, we could take the opportunity to educate the public and to talk about the advantages. And at that point, people will understand, they'll have a better understanding of and they'd be more open, I think, to doing this. Because I heard the same feedback from people who knew that we were going in this direction. And I can tell you that in some neighborhoods, like in my neighbor, for example, doesn't cut his lawn. And so people need to be better educated, I think, to understand what the advantages are. But generally speaking, I know that we won't necessarily have problems, but there will definitely be an impact of this bylaw. All right, if you allow, so what Alexandre is saying, and maybe this is just a different way of saying this, but we can maintain the current bylaw. So the custom is in Dieppe and other communities is to cut the grass. But what Alexandre and Stéphane Simard checked is that if somebody decides not to cut their lawn, we can intervene, but we don't have any power. So the jurisprudence shows us that so that if somebody wants to defy the city, we have no tools to force that person to cut their lawn. So we spend money and effort on legal issues that we don't have really any power. So what Alexandre is trying to do, and this is what we found in the research that we did, is, and that's where we kind of encountered the idea of the problems with having a pilot project. If there are residents or merchants that decide to do something different, we won't have the legal authority to do anything. So I don't know if I've tried to explain it in a different way, but I don't know if that helps. While I understand that part, I also understand that we received complaints and we had to go and cut different places, and that but I mean, we did take action when there were complaints in the past, but now we're saying, okay, now we can't, we're not going to take action at all. So what are we going to do? Are we going to act on a case-by-case basis? If there's a problem, we talked about rodents and other things. Well, we're already doing case by case, where we deal with 200 or so complaints a summer. So yes, we will take action. We hope that we have less than 200 to 300 interventions that we have to do, but and it's important to point out that it's not 200 or 300 different people with, I mean, there are hot spots, but we want to deal with this differently. And yeah, we'll continue to operate on a case-by-case basis. Councillor Janet. Thank you, Your Worship. Well, I am in favor of this bylaw. So yes, we will be we'll be avant-garde in our approach here. So I mean, this will have many benefits, including reducing emissions, for example. Grass absorbs carbon. Other people have alternative lawns, and there's a loss of biodiversity in the city. And that's the same in all cities. And I think the most important point is that it's not sustainable for us to ask our officers to enforce something where they have no power to act. So for me, I think education is important. We have to put a new approach in place. And I mean, people will still want to cut their grass when they want to, but that's kind of why I support this bylaw. So I hope that I presented it coherently, but I will be voting in favor of this bylaw. Councillor Lanting, please. Well, I'm not going to repeat what's already been said, but it's a good initiative. So great that we're working with the University of Moncton. I have some reservations about what Councillor Le Boutier and Councillor Turgeon-Roy have raised. My question, well, actually I have two questions. So most municipalities, would you say that most municipalities have a bylaw that requires the cutting of lawn or at a certain height, or most don't have one? Urban centers, most urban centers have bylaws, but they're kind of doing the same thing that we're doing. They're asking the same questions that we are. They're trying to define turf grass versus natural plants, and I mean, very technical debates. And our officers aren't necessarily trained to identify plants and So we're seeing lots of municipalities that are going back to the drawing board, and they consult with their public, and they come back to the same questions, that it's too difficult to define what is aesthetic and what isn't, and case law tends to support letting people do what they want to do. All right, so when we have a bylaw, that gives our officers a certain power, and I understand that there's case law, but you know, we passed a tree bylaw that was very audacious, very bold. But if the bylaw is clear, and if we say 25 centimeters, and the proof, we have proof that that somebody hasn't complied with the bylaw, is that puts us in a bad position? Is that what you're saying? Well, I wish Stéphane was there. He could answer maybe more the technical aspect, but from my understanding is that we can make bylaws that deal with safety, but lawn height does not include those concepts. And that's based on the legal advice that we receive. So 25, 30, 20 centimeters, there's no safety issues there or health issues that would, you know, compel us to arrive at that number, unless it you know, obstructs the visibility. So that's why we kept you know, the aspect of visibility in there, you know, where if it blocks traffic and things like that.
Merci, Monsieur le maire. Le Conseil Lantaigne vient de
Thank you,
mentionner.
Your Worship. Councillor Lantaigne just mentioned the tree bylaw. And when we adopted the tree bylaw, we wanted certain changes, and we were told, no, well, let's adopt it as it is, and we'll come back in a year and see. Why don't we do the same thing this time? Well, exactly. Exactly. That's exactly why. Yeah. But practically speaking, I mean, we have to talk of practicality. And I see that we're in a situation where we have an existing bylaw that we cannot apply. I mean, that's a problem. That's a problem for the city, that we have a bylaw and we can't enforce it. And I think some of our staff has brought a very interesting solution to try and meet that question. So first of all, thank you for having answered what we asked you to do, and thank you. And I think you did it very well. And I think we're headed in the right direction. But when I think of the first discussions we had on this, on the length, the height of grass and so on, we were talking about a transition period. And what I'm hearing this evening is that we're going through this transition very quickly. That's what I'm getting out of it. I think we're headed in the right way, and I think we're going to get there, but perhaps that the population is not quite ready for what's here. I'm ready for what you're proposing, but I'm not sure that we've prepared the population properly. So it's at one point in time, we have to find where we are at in this transition. We are ready, but the ones who receive the bylaw might not be ready. And I think we're going to, and if we are we risking having a bylaw that we can't enforce during this period? So even if I'm ready to vote in favor of this type of bylaw, I'm really caught in this dilemma that the population might not be ready. Now, what's going to happen if we impose a bylaw and people aren't ready? We're going to have fights between neighbors, and all sorts of problems are going to arise. So we should give ourselves the time necessary for the change. We give the education that's necessary. I think you're a great salesperson. I think I'm convinced that you're going to help us to sell this to the population. I believe that in the direction you're headed in, but I think that maybe we might have skipped a step here. And we have to be careful that we don't impose something rather than transition to something. So that's the way I'm thinking so far. Thank you. Thank you. And the Councillor Boutier. another opportunity to speak? Yes, thank you, Your Worship. Just following Mr. Councillor Thibodeau's words, it's a little different in this case that if we adopt this now and not as a pilot project, well, we can't come back in time. You can't come back on your lawn. I mean, once it's done, it's done, I think, right? If according to what you present. Yeah, but somebody who doesn't want to let their grass low higher isn't going to. They're going to maintain their turf grass the way they want. Yeah. Yeah, but it's just come back. You can't come back in time. I think there's a difference in this case. I just wanted to confirm that. Your Worship, if you allow me a comment, I think everybody has made their comment, and there is a slight difference in opinion as to how we advance on this. When we were asked to look at the lawns, we did research, and this is the result. This bylaw is the result of our study. Now, if you want to move gradually, we could try to do that. People who want to challenge the bylaw, well, it'll give what it'll give. But we can tell you that a progressive approach is going to have its own challenges, same as adopting the bylaw is going to have its challenges. So just those two comments, that we're going to have challenges on both sides, because traditionally, as people want these beautiful lawns, and we have some beautiful lawns here, and some people, are landscaping and want to cut grass, and anyhow, this is how council has what council asked us, and we will do what council wishes. Well, we have two choices. We can either vote on it, or we can postpone it. But in any case, we have to move forward. I'd like to say, from my own experience in this matter, I've never seen the city take anybody to court, probably for good reason. I think we've heard it. And I've seen lawns that are with grass that are 3-4 feet high, and all of the neighbors are quite angry about it. They don't like it, but there's nothing we can do about it in any case. So I'm just saying that's my only experience with this, and I wouldn't be surprised if, based on it's your experience too, based on what I've heard. So we could either vote on it, or we can table it. We can postpone it to another day. But I would suggest that if we vote, that would still give us the potential to adjust it or to change it. And we've heard all of the comments. We can bring you a revised version when Stéphane comes back from vacation, because there's also the bylaw on streets and trails, so the two have to be adopted together. Well, if we can have a resolution to put this off to another date, and it's been moved then by Councillor Lantaigne, seconder, Councillor Turgeon-Roy. Would that satisfy everybody for today? If yes, please signify by saying aye. Opposed, perhaps raise your hand. Perhaps raise your hand. Raise your hand if yes, or yes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. To postpone it to another day.
Ça nous amène 4-2.
4-2. 4-2 to postpone it to another day. So let's move on then. Well, it's 4 in favor, 2 opposed. So Councillor Janin and Councillor Godbout. All those in favor? All those in, well, the consensus was to postpone it. So it'll be the same for 11.2. Okay, so the same applies to 11.2. 11.2, which was the second reading by title only. That one follows, which brings us then to, well, 11.2.2. We're going to have to postpone that one too because they're related, interrelated. Well, that took care of that. So we need a mover and a seconder for 11.2 as well. Moved by Councillor Lantin, seconded earlier by, who was? Turgeon Roy, okay. All those in favor will signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. 2 noes. All the others are in favor. So we'll put that off to another meeting. Which brings us to, unless there are notices of motion. Are there any notices of motion? Nothing? Okay, let's move on to inquiries and announcements by members of council. Councillor Le Boutier. Well, first of all, I'd like to mention that we're in the middle of the Ringuette National Championships, and we participated, several of you participated at the opening ceremonies, and I'd like to congratulate everybody who was involved in any way, everybody from the city. It was a very proud moment. The ceremony was exceptional. It was held at the Uniplex. Everything was really the very best. And I know that it takes an awful lot of work and energy, and it's our first big activity, right? Sports activity in one of the pillars, one of the pillars that we have, the sports tourism. People come from everywhere. I went to one of the games. It was really nice. I didn't have the chance, but there were a lot of parents from Quebec. I should have taken a picture. They were all wearing these lobster hats. You know, these people from Quebec going around the arena with these lobster hats. It was quite ironic, actually. And all of our teams have won so far their first game, so that bodes well. And you know that many of the players come from Dieppe, so that's great. And I have a question. I have another question. We talked about Earth Day and recycling and so on. In our sports complexes, would it be possible to recycle bottles? Even develop a partnership with the associations? Is there a fund? It could be a fundraising campaign. Even this morning, somebody talked to me about this. It would be great. I mean, there are a lot of bottles of every type in our sports facilities, and it would be a really nice initiative to look at that. And it would be a fundraiser for the association. It's 10 cents a bottle now, so it would be really good. And that's all for me. Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Jeannin. Thank you, Your Worship. And I have 2 issues to raise. The first one was brought up to me by Jasmine in Ward 1. It's on the construction taking place on Champlain Street, or the vision of Champlain. I don't know if it has already been answered, but I'm just going to ask the question. She noticed that the buildings are built very close to the sidewalk. So it's almost claustrophobic if you're, because the sidewalks aren't very wide. So she was just wondering, what is going to be the future vision of active transportation along Champlain? Are we going to be able to plant trees along Champlain? Or I know we've talked about this a little bit in the past in terms of active transportation, but you know, the width of the sidewalks, and how can we make it more, well, better for active transportation? And also the intersectionality, families with baby carriages, and there are a number of questions are raised in that sense. Who wants to answer it? I know that an answer is being prepared. There are certain factors to take into consideration. Ideally, we would review it, but I'll let Marc-André prepare an answer with the team.
C'est un peu ça la réponse, ben, pour
Well,
l'instant. C'est-
that's basically the answer for the time being. So the question is quite vague, and it involves a number of departments. So, but we'll be answering that. So basically for Champlain, you know, we're talking about the setbacks are 20 to 24. We have 4 lanes of traffic. We have sidewalks on either side. We need you know, space for the fire hydrants and then light posts. So we don't have a lot of space that we can add. So I think for you know, we can before it's an issue of snow clearance as well. So long term, what I'd like to see is a reduction in lanes. But to do that, we'll have to get remove cars from the downtown area. And so that's a provincial issue because we want to put an exchanger there. So there's nothing concrete. We're still in the discussions phase. But ideally, we would like to reduce the roadway by 1 lane in each direction. And or have a turning lane, for example. And that would allow us, that would give us 3 or 4 meters, and that would allow us to put in trails and trees as well. But that's a long-term view. But for the downtown area, we may not see that, but we may see, you know, if there's construction on Gauvin Street, the idea is that we're going to have a wider than standard sidewalk on one side and then a trail on the other, and then we can look at planting trees there as well. But planting trees in a downtown core requires effort and specialized infrastructure. You can't just plant a tree and have it grow. You need an underground space where the roots can take hold, and it's complicated. And you have to consider, you know, all of the other infrastructure there. There's lots of pipes as well. So just to summarize, yes, we are thinking about that. We'll try to accommodate trails and trees when we can, but it might take a bit more time. I hope that answers your question a bit. Well, you know, as I often say, it's like we have a highway going through the heart of our city, and you know, the idea was to get cars traveling past it through as quickly as possible. But maybe we'll have to rethink that, as you know, as our cities densify, do we want cars in the downtown core? That'll be a discussion that we have to have with the province as well, like as you said. But so maybe long term, maybe, you know, we can do like what they've done in the downtown core in Moncton, and have more space for pedestrians there. So thank you very much. I had a second topic that I wanted to talk about. I was listening to TV, and I came across France 2, and I found something very interesting. There was in France, there's a number of municipalities that have got involved in a movement called L'Heure Civique. So each month, there's a volunteer that goes to visit with a senior or does some action in the community, and there's a website for that connects volunteers with citizens who need help. So that could be something that we could do here. I was looking at Heure Civique for an area of France in Bretagne. And so, you know, there was it was really a nice thing to see that the senior would wait for the visitor every, you know, religiously, and you know, we could look at, you know, tree planting and things like that, environmental issues. So maybe something to consider. Maybe you could go and check that out online and find more information. So that's all for me this evening.
Monsieur Thibodeau.
Councillor Thibodeau.
Monsieur le maire, moi, j'ai rien pour ce soir.
Thank you, Your Worship. I have nothing this evening.
Madame Turgeon.
Councillor Turgeon-Roy.
Excusez-moi.
Thank you, Your Worship. I have a question, and maybe this is a question for Annie. In terms of signage in the downtown area, last year, talking about the Dieppe Arts and Culture Center, there's a lack of signage, and we're hearing more and more feedback from visitors who are finding that place difficult to find. Even on Google Maps, the address that's given is Acadie Street. So, and people get lost. They don't know where to go to park. So I don't know if this is something that you've already looked at. So how to direct people to the Arts and Culture Center. Well, we did start a signage exercise, and we're looking to replace our welcome signs. The costs are a bit higher than what we estimated them to be. So I'm not sure if we're going to get that far this year, but it will definitely be part of the budget process for 2024. So the civic address for on Google Maps for the Arts and Culture Center, can't we change that? You know, and to help people, to direct people towards parking? I don't know. You know, it's the same situation as here. Our address is 333 Acadie Avenue, but the entrance to City Hall is not really a street. So, okay, well, I just wanted to mention it because these are comments that I've heard from people. So, Councillor Godbout. Thank you, Your Worship. Two small questions. One for Mr. Thériault. I just wanted to follow up and confirm that you are going to be presenting your quarterly financial reports. We've come, the first quarter is over, so I just wanted to know when you're going to be presenting those reports. Yes. So like last year, we presented that at the standing committee meeting in May. So it takes a month to have all the details, but I can present that in May. All right, my second question then is, where are we at with recycling? We talked about you know, the big changes that occurred in early April. There's a new provincial entity. There's a lot of hidden costs and user fees. And I know, so where is that transition at? What and things that could have an impact on our municipality, and so how can we keep our residents updated? Well, I don't have a lot of details with me tonight, but I know that Operational Services is working with other municipalities in the region for there's a project that's supposed to start in the fall. I think there are other municipal departments that are involved as well, but discussions are underway. And I'll come back with more detail later, but at this point, there's not a lot of information I don't have a lot of information for you. Well, there will be no changes until November 30th of this year, and there will be talks in the fall, but for the time being, until November 30, there won't be any changes on waste collection. And so, well, it's unfortunate, but you know, are we going to have to, you know, the province is not being transparent. Are we're going to have to help our residents, so we won't be able to help people understand what good practices are. And you know, there's a lot of information that we don't have, so it's not transparent. And so I think, well, our poor residents, they don't know what's going on with this. So I think the province should be more transparent. Now, I'm happy to see recycling, and I want our city to participate in it, but I don't want to get lost in the process. People are usually committed, and we want to keep them engaged in the process. All right, thank you. Councillor Lanting. Thank you, Your Worship. 2 quick points for me, and this was already mentioned, but I want to repeat it. So the Ringette National Championships it's a major sporting event, and they're taking place in great facilities at the Uniplex. So good luck to our local teams, and I'm happy to hear that every team has won its first game. I especially want to thank the volunteers and the organizers. We know that these events take a lot of you know, without volunteers, it would be hard to offer this type of activity. So thank you. And then finally, for those who didn't hear, the invitation is for people to, residents are invited to come to the open door activity here at City Hall. Come and hear about what's happening at City Hall and give your feedback. And we'll talk to you about our strategic planning as well. So on that note, thank you and have a nice evening. Okay, well, thank you. You stole some words out of my mouth. So on that, have a nice evening, everyone. And we'll see you the next time.